The production floor was quiet in the way a burning budget is quiet. No conveyor hum, no servo chatter, just emergency lights blinking like impatient eyes. I was kneeling at the main control cabinet when the central status display stopped cycling fault codes and printed three words. Hello, Claire Bennett. I stared. Machines do not greet you unless someone has taught them manners or mischief. Behind me, Janine Holloway, plant director at Skyquill Aeroworks, whispered, "Did you do that?" "If I did," I said, "I would have chosen a kinder font." Skyquill molded composite aircraft components. Three of their four layup cells were locked in protection mode. The fourth limped along, producing just enough to keep executives from scheduling panic. "We called your company because they said you were the one," Janine said. "I worked for Larkspur Industrial Controls. When a client's automation system broke in a way that embarrassed everyone, Larkspur flew me in. I knew our custom logic, our shortcuts, our sins." "Show me the last changes," I said. Miles Reardon, maintenance lead, slid a tablet over. The changelog showed a recent firmware push from Larkspur remote support. Stability patch, revision E. I frowned. "Who approved this?" "Corporate pushed it," Miles said. "They said it would stop nuisance trips." The display blinked again. "You fired the wrong person." Janine's eyes snapped to me. Then my phone buzzed, stubborn and insistent. Caller ID, Darius Kell. Darius was Larkspur's director of operations, a man who could turn a spreadsheet into a personality. I answered. "Claire," he said, cheerful as a quarterly memo, "your role has been eliminated. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated." For a moment, even the air felt still. "I am on an emergency call-out," I said. "Your client is down." "Yes, I am aware," he replied. "Hand over your notes. Remote support will take over." "Remote support pushed the patch that turned this line into a haunted house," I said. "And you just said I do not work for you. That means I will not touch your client's equipment." Silence. Then, "Do not be dramatic." "I keep robots from flinging carbon fiber like confetti," I said. "Drama is the job." His tone sharpened. "If you walk away, you will be responsible for damages." "I will be responsible for my breathing," I replied. "Your damages belong to your decisions." He started to threaten attorneys. I ended the call. Janine stepped closer, voice thin. "They fired you, here." "Yes," I said. "Apparently my loyalty hit end of life." The status display printed again. Patch Rev E was not an accident. My stomach dropped. Failures were puzzles. This felt like a trap. Miles lowered his voice. "Are you saying sabotage?" "I am saying," I answered, "that your machine just accused my former employer of something worse than incompetence." Janine was already calling legal counsel, muttering about exclusivity clauses. I pointed at the line, at the locked safety states, at the dead production. "Most maintenance agreements have an emergency escape hatch," I said. "If the vendor cannot respond in time, you can hire qualified help. Ask about third-party intervention." Janine nodded, walking fast, like speed could buy hours. The display flickered one last time, as if it had been saving its best line. "I know who wrote the patch." Then the screen went black. I stared at my reflection in the dead glass and felt something settle into place. Someone at Larkspur had decided I was disposable. They had also decided I would make a convenient scapegoat when Skyquill demanded answers. If they wanted a story where Claire Bennett failed, they had chosen the wrong narrator. I had spent years rescuing other people from the consequences of their shortcuts. Now I was going to let the consequences find them, and I was going to bill for the introduction. Janine returned from her call with the look of someone who had found an exit in a burning building. "Our counsel says the vendor agreement has an emergency clause," she said. "If Larkspur cannot provide qualified support within 2 days of written notice, we can hire third-party help." "So you can stay," Miles said, hopeful. "I can work," I corrected. Working as a contract. Janine nodded quickly. She had counsel send formal notice to Larkspur and copied me. Larkspur replied with a polite delay and a promise of an estimate soon, which is corporate for never. Soon is not a time unit, I said. Counsel followed with a second email. Sky Quill was invoking the emergency clause and engaging independent support. Attached was a short consulting agreement, drafted fast and sharp. I called my sister Tessa Bennett, a contracts attorney who treated fine print like sport. She scanned the terms while I stared at the deadline. No poison pills, she said. They protect you. They also reserve the right to share your technical report with insurers, regulators, and, importantly, Larkspur. Perfect, I said. Add one line. Work begins after deposit. Janine asked, "What is your rate?" I looked at the blinking safeties, the stalled layup cells, and the memory of Darius firing me in the middle of the mess he helped create. 900 an hour for emergency restoration, I said. Half up front, minimum through validated restart. Miles made a strangled sound. Janine did not blink. Do it. When the deposit notification hit my phone, I relaxed. I was no longer a line item. I pulled the firmware image from the controller and found the heart of the problem. Rev E had changed the pressure compensation rounding method and tightened safety thresholds. On a spreadsheet, it looked conservative. On a factory floor, it created a system that distrusted its own readings and shut itself down at the slightest drift. I can reverse it, I told Janine, but I need to know why the display greeted me. She hesitated. We assumed it was corruption. Corruption does not get witty, I said. I dug into the display logic and found a small diagnostic script embedded where it did not belong. It was keyed to my badge ID. Someone expected me to arrive, expected me to connect, expected me to see those messages. Miles stared at the code. Who would plant that? Either someone trying to warn me, I said, or someone trying to make sure I understood I was being framed. I built a corrected firmware package and started repairing Rev E damage, drifted sensor offsets, stuck fault states, and a safety layer locked into paranoia. As the code compiled, I hunted the patch's deployment token. The package did not list a name, only internal identifiers. But I knew Larkspur's habits. I searched headers and change comments, looking for the kind of shortcut managers loved. Buried in a file that should have been clean, I found a single line. Approved by DK for accelerated rollout. I read it twice. DK, Darius Kell. Janine saw my expression. What did you find? A signature, I said. The kind that goes poorly with denials. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Darius's voice slid through the speaker, calm and smug. Claire, you are making this difficult. I am making it accurate, I replied. You are on proprietary equipment, he said. You are touching our code. I am on Sky Quill's floor, I said, working under their emergency clause, with a contract, with a deposit. A small pause. His confidence thinned. You will stop, or you will regret it. I already regret training half your managers to confuse speed with skill, I said. But do not worry, I am building a very detailed report. His voice hardened. You think a report can hurt me? I think facts are sharp, I said. And you left yours in a header file. I ended the call and turned back to the controller, hands steady, mind alight. I was going to get Sky Quill running. Then I was going to send Larkspur a bill, a report, and a problem they could not patch away. With the corrected firmware built, the work became what I trusted, restoring order to a system bullied into chaos. I rolled back Rev E, rebuilt the safety envelope, and reset the compensation routine so it corrected drift without punishing normal physics. Then came the unglamorous steps that keep you alive, recalibrating sensors that had spent days arguing and clearing fault states that had hardened into stubborn habits. Miles and his team handled the physical steps under my direction. They were competent, exhausted, and quietly furious. People who keep plants running do not like being made helpless. When the first cell came out of protection mode, it did not roar back to life. It tested itself. Actuators cycled, heaters stabilized, vacuum lines held. Green indicators appeared, one by one, and the floor's silence softened into a low mechanical hum. Miles grinned. "We have motion." "We have obedience," I said. "Do not celebrate until we have consistency." While the cell ran verification, I pulled more logs. If Darius had approved accelerated rollout, there would be a trail. Larkspur's deployment system stamped every push with an originating node and a security token. The patch had come from a node labeled OPS-CHI-04. The approving token matched DK. The timing matched the week Darius began talking loudly about right-sizing senior roles. Janine asked, "Is that enough to prove sabotage?" "It proves fingerprints," I said. "Intent is what lawyers fight over. I am collecting receipts." My phone lit up with an email from Larkspur's legal department. Notice of unauthorized access. They demanded I stop work on proprietary systems and implied Skyquill would be in breach for letting me on the floor. Janine read it and let out a laugh. "They fired you, then claim you cannot fix what they broke." "Contradictions are how bad managers breathe," I said. Tessa called, delighted. "Their notice is bluster. Your contract is clean. Their response time created the emergency. Keep every message. Reply in writing." I drafted 3 sentences. Skyquill invoked the emergency clause. I was engaged as independent support. All work products belong to Skyquill. No apology, no panic, just structure. We sent it. A little later, a visitor request appeared at the gate. Larkspur had dispatched a field specialist to assist. His name was Brent Doss. Miles checked the camera feed. "He looks like he has never held a wrench." Janine asked, "Do we let him in?" "Let him wait," I said. "We are restarting Cell 2. Cell 2 came online. Cell 3 followed. Each restart took patience, verification, and a calm Darius could not spreadsheet into existence. Brent kept calling the control room phone. Miles let it ring like an alarm nobody trusted. Soon the 4th cell was producing at full rate. The floor sounded normal again, synchronized, relentless, alive today. Janine's shoulders finally dropped. "You saved us." "I saved your line," I corrected. "You will save your company by deciding what to do with the truth." "I want damages," she said. "And I want answers." I packaged the technical report with appendices, deployment stamps, node IDs, approval tokens, and the diagnostic script keyed to my badge. The conclusion was plain. The shutdown was preventable, and the patch was pushed anyway. As I sent the report to Janine and her counsel, my phone buzzed with a new message. "Unknown number. You are not the only one who got fired." A moment later, an email arrived from an address I recognized. Owen Park, a quiet engineer from Larkspur Remote Support. His message was one line. "I planted the warning because I could not stop him." My pulse tightened. The machine had known. Someone inside Larkspur had tried to tell me, using the only language Darius respected. Consequences. I typed back, "Meet me somewhere public," because my revenge plan had just shifted from personal to systematic. I met Owen Park in a crowded airport cafe. Public places discouraged theatrics and encouraged truth. Owen arrived with the posture of someone who expected to be blamed for weather. He slid a flash drive across the table. "Darius wanted a crisis," he said. "He said Skyquill was too comfortable. He wanted proof that sending senior engineers was a waste." "So he broke the client to win an argument," I said. Owen nodded. Rev E was pitched as stability. It was not tested on their configuration. I objected. He called me an obstacle. Then I was laid off for performance. "And I was fired during the blast," I said. "He planned that," Owen said, eyes down. "He said if you were gone, he could replace crisis response with a cheaper subcontractor and sell it as modernization. He called you a single point of failure." I was a single point of success, I said. Owen swallowed. This drive has internal approvals, rollout schedules, and messages. DK signed off. There are notes about switching field response to a vendor called Harborline Service Partners. I pocketed the drive. Why give this to me? Because he will do it again, Owen said. And because I cannot sleep. Then we do not let him, I replied. On my way home, I called Leah Bright, my partner in both life and sarcasm. She listened, then said, "Do you want sympathy or a business plan?" "Both," I said. "Start with the business plan." By the time my plane landed, Leah had a name, a simple operating structure, and a list of clients who had asked for someone like Claire the last time their lines faltered. We formed Bennett Bright Automation with one rule: expertise is not a donation. Skyquill moved fast, too. Janine's counsel filed a claim for downtime and emergency restoration costs, and demanded an audit of Larkspur's remote deployment practices. Larkspur responded with denials, then with silence, then with an offer for a collaborative review, which is what people say when the other side brought evidence. Tessa helped us package my technical report and Owen's materials into something that could survive lawyers. The more I read, the less subtle it became. Darius had called the rollout a catalyst event. A catalyst. For his promotion, my disappearance, and a cheaper vendor. A week later, an invitation arrived from the Aerofab Reliability Council. Darius Kell was scheduled to keynote their Forgeline Leadership Summit on building trust in automated systems. Janine forwarded it to me with a single line: "We should attend." Skyquill submitted a technical session proposal, preventing remote patch cascades in composite layup cells. It was accepted. Apparently, engineers love disaster stories, as long as the slides have graphs. The night before the summit, Leah and I built the deck. Not marketing fluff, not inspirational slogans, just timestamps, deployment nodes, and the line of code that greeted me. Tessa insisted we add a section called Chain of Custody, because nothing ruins a villain's day like organized documentation. Janine rehearsed her opening twice, steadying her voice the way she steadied production schedules. Larkspur tried one last move. A representative emailed the council claiming Skyquill's talk contained confidential vendor information. The council replied that safety lessons were not trade secrets and invited Larkspur to submit a rebuttal session. In other words, bring facts or bring quiet. On the morning of the summit, I walked into the hotel ballroom wearing a badge that said Consultant. Leah walked beside me, calm and sharp. Tessa followed with a folder thick enough to bruise a table. Across the lobby, Darius laughed with executives, relaxed and polished. Then his gaze caught mine and locked. He did not smile. Neither did I. Because the keynote speaker had just realized the audience included the person he tried to erase, and my next presentation was going to use his own approvals as visual aids. Darius went on stage first and preached trust with the confidence of a man who had never met his own email archive. He clicked through polished slides about change control and governance, the kind that sound noble until you notice who signed the last rollout. When he finished, the room applauded. Executives love applause because it sounds like certainty. Then Janine walked up for Skyquill's technical session. She did not begin with gratitude. She began with data. "Our layup cells were disabled by a remote firmware patch," she said. "We requested vendor response and did not receive qualified support within our contractual window. We engaged independent restoration. This is what we found." She nodded to me. I advanced the first slide. "Hello, Claire Bennett." A murmur moved through the ballroom. This was a diagnostic script embedded in a production display layer, keyed to an engineer's badge ID, Janine continued. Someone anticipated her arrival. Next slide. The Rev E change, highlighted, with a simple diagram showing how the rounding method pushed values into conflict and forced cascading protection trips. Then the slide that mattered. Deployment stamp, originating node, OPS, CHI-04 and the approval line, approved by DK for accelerated rollout. The room made a new sound, the one people make when applause turns into calculation. Darius did not smile anymore. A hand rose. Are you accusing Larkspur of intent? Janine paused. We are stating facts. Counsel will address intent. Tessa stood. Skyquill has filed a formal claim and requested an independent audit. We invite Larkspur to produce their full deployment records. I stepped to the microphone. I was terminated during the outage. Skyquill hired me under their emergency clause. I restored the line. I also kept every log I touched. Darius stood up. Too fast. Misleading, he snapped. Claire is a disgruntled former employee. I smiled. Disgruntled is a feeling. Deployment stamps are math. He tried louder. You are sharing proprietary information. Janine answered, calm. We are sharing failure mechanisms that affected operations and safety. If your governance cannot survive daylight, that is not confidentiality. That is fragility. The council moderator cut in. Mr. Kell, submit a rebuttal with supporting documentation. We are opening a review panel. After the session, the lobby filled with quiet storms. Plant directors asked Janine for copies. Compliance officers asked Tessa for meetings. Several people asked me, bluntly, what my retainer looked like. Darius found me near the coffee station, voice low and bitter. You think this ends well for you? It already did, I said. I got paid, and I got your signature. You do not understand politics. I understand cause and effect, I replied. Politics is just the part where adults pretend not to notice the connection. By the time the summit ended, Skyquill had suspended all non-critical remote updates, terminated Larkspur's response authority pending audit, and signed a retainer with Bennett Bright Automation for emergency coverage and governance reviews. Later, Owen forwarded me a short internal announcement. Darius Kell was transitioning out of his role. Harborline Service Partners was no longer under consideration. I did not celebrate with fireworks. I celebrated with something better. A production dashboard that stayed green. Within days, 2 other manufacturers called, the ones Larkspur always labeled low margin. They were not low margin to the people losing sleep on their floors. I took the calls, set fair terms, and made sure every fix included a governance checklist that managers could not ignore. Leah and I built our firm on a simple promise. If a client called in the early hours, we would answer, solve the problem, and document the truth. If a manager tried to turn failure into a strategy, we would price their arrogance accordingly. Revenge does not have to be loud. Sometimes it is a clean restart, a clear invoice, and a public slide that reminds everyone, expertise is expensive, but sabotage is always more expensive.